Welcome everyone to our YouTube series, Test Prep Made Easy. So in this particular series, we are going to post regularly questions on our YouTube channel. The questions may pertain to CAT preparation, maybe pertaining to GMAT preparation, as well as of various topics which are tested in these particular exams. For example, quants, LRDI, English, and various areas which are tested. And each day we will handle certain number of questions and their video solutions. The best approach is to these questions in these videos. So have a happy preparation ahead and enjoy the video. Thank you.
All right, so these are the questions that we are going to try in today's video. If you have tried it already from the thumbnail, good enough. If you haven't, you can pause the video at this point and try it once before you look into the solutions. We recommend you doing that. But if you just want to enjoy the solution, that's also good enough. And go ahead and watch the solutions now. This is a very nice question when it comes to AP. So suppose I have this AP. Now, this is having a common difference of 3, right? So because it's an AP, you add a constant value on this side to get the next term, isn't it? On the reverse side also, you need to subtract a constant value to get the previous term. This will always happen in an AP, right? Now, because this happens, so this is very natural to understand that if I add this 8 and 20, I'll get 28. This 11 and 17 should also be equal to 28, right? See, when we are adding 8 and 20, we are adding the first term from the beginning and first term from the last, right? When we are adding 11 and 17, we are adding first term from the second term from the beginning and the second term from the last. So if you think the third term from the beginning and third term from the last, both of those are 14, right? So then it makes sense. I mean, 14 added to 14 itself will again be 28. I mean, this is precisely the reason that the average of first term and last term is same as the middle term. So this is what is happening, right? Because 8 and 20 sum is 28. So the average of those two will be 14, which is indirectly the middle term, right? So you don't need to by heart this. I mean, the reason I'm asking you not to by heart is you can do it with any two terms which are symmetrical position from the beginning and the last. So for example, in this question, the mth term from the beginning and mth term from the end are 10 and 20. So mth term from the beginning and mth term from the end are given as 10 and 20. So effectively, the average of these two will also be the average of the entire AP series. So the average of the AP series is coming out to be 15, right? Which is the average of 10 and 20. And since we know that there are 100 terms, the sum of any number of terms will always be average multiplied to the number of terms. So average is 15 and the number of terms is 100. Just multiply these two to get the sum here. So it's a pretty easy question if you understand the basic idea of AP. Don't mark them up. Just remember this idea. It's a very easy one to understand. The average of AP will always be the average of two terms, symmetrical position from the beginning and the end. And once you obtain the average in whichever means possible, the simplest way that is feasible, just simply multiply that with the number of terms to get the sum. That is always the easiest way to find the sum. So that's it for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood. This is a question that has already appeared in CAT once. These type of things I have discussed in our lessons also. I call it special functions. I mean, there are special arithmetic ideas that need to be applied in this particular pattern here. So first thing to observe here is that you have this ending at fn, the summation on the left hand side, and the right hand side is expressed in terms of fn, right? It's n square into fn. So if I mean, there is no such criteria in terms of n, so I can end it at anything, right? For instance, if I end it at f of n minus 1, then it should be n minus 1 whole square into f of n minus 1. That's what it says, right? I mean, if I'm ending it at n, so it is n square into fn. So if I end it at n minus 1, it should be n minus 1 whole square into fn. Now, if you observe the original summation as it is provided, I mean, this part till this point, I mean, just before this term, it is this one, right? It's up to f of n minus 1. So what we can do is we can rewrite this original one that is given as this entire thing, and which is this. So n minus 1 whole square into fn minus 1 plus another fn is giving us n square fn, right? So what you have is something like this: n minus 1 whole square into f of n minus 1 is equal to n square minus 1 into fn. So I'm trying to establish a relationship between this and this. What I'll do is I'll divide fn by f of n minus 1. The reason being, if you look at the requirement and the given thing, f of 1 is given and f of 2005 is required. Let me just put the fn on top. So fn divided by fn minus 1 will be equal to, so this remains in the numerator and this should go in the denominator. So you have n minus 1 square by n square minus 1. By the way, you can cancel out one of the n minus 1. So you'll have something like this: n minus 1 into n plus 1. So I'm just going to clear the screen and then I'm going to carry on using this relationship. So I'm just going to use this is equal to this. Okay, so we have obtained this relationship. First thing, using this relationship, we can say f of 2 divided by f of 1. So it is very important that you start with whatever is given and then you move forward because something on the higher side is required. So f of 2 divided by f of 1. So I'm just substituting n equal to 2. So if I'm putting n equal to 2, the right hand side is 1 by 3. Similarly, if I take f of 3 divided by f of 2, so now I'm going one after the other. So you can just substitute n equal to 3. So you get 2 by 4 and so on. So this will go on till, by the way, we are looking for f of 2005, right? So I'll stop at that. So n is 2005. So that will give us 2004 upon 2006. Don't reduce it, keep it as it is. You'll understand why I'm doing this. Now, because it's a division kind of relationship, so what you do is just multiply each one of them. Each of these, just keep multiplying here. So if I multiply everything here till f of 2005 upon f of 2004, the right hand side will be 1 by 3 into 2 by 4 into 3 by 5, and this goes on till 2004 upon 2006, right? Now check something out. This there is a bit of cancellation, but that starts from the third term, right? So the denominator of the first term is cancelling with the numerator of the third term. And if you think a little bit rationally here, I mean, the next term will be 4 by 6, right? So again, you can see that this 4 and this 4 cancels off. So starting from the first denominator, every denominator will cancel out till the last two denominators, because if you think symmetrically, I mean, this 5, 6, everything will go off, and this 2004 should also cancel out from the previous denominator, right? So the last two denominators should remain. How do I identify that? Very easy: symmetry. So the first term's numerator and the second term's numerator did not cancel. So by symmetry, we can say the last term's denominator and the previous term's denominator should not cancel. And these denominators are consecutive, so we don't have to actually put n and evaluate. So what we'll be left with is 1 into 2 upon 2005 into 2006. So this is exactly what we're going to be left with. And now on the left hand side, I mean, the reason we multiplied, I mean, that should have been pretty obvious by now. So all of this will cancel off. Same reason. So what we have is just one second. Yeah. F of 2005 upon f of 1. So just now substitute the value and you get the answer. So in this case, f of 1 is, by the way, 2006. So this f1 and 2006 will cancel off. So f of 2005 comes out to be 2 by 2004. 5. So that is option 2 as the answer. So a very special type of arithmetic idea on function, but things to take a note of in this particular question. The relationship that was provided to us, we needed to reduce it or simplify it. So how do we simplify it? Try to focus on a relationship between, let's say, the nth term and n minus 1th term, because there are consecutive values here. So I mean, when I say nth term and n minus 1th term, I hope you understand from my speaking that I'm treating it more as a series rather than the function itself. So it is end of the day series kind of idea, right? Because f1, f2, f3, f4, these are natural numbers as input. So when we are inputting natural numbers, so we can treat them as the first term, second term, third term, and so on. So try to establish a relationship between nth term and n minus 1th term. So once you get that, you can utilize it. This is the main objective that you try to obtain. So that's it for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a CAT question, an actual CAT question. I don't remember with the data, but the idea, this relationship that is here, that was the exact relationship that came in CAT. And that's it for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood. Thank you. Okay, so whenever you have a question like this, when it says a certain quadratic for what values of a find, but a certain quadratic expression is always negative, is always positive. In those kind of cases, always try to first identify the graphical, implication of that. So if I have a quadratic expression, it will be a parabola, and if it is always negative, the graph should be something like this, right? So it should always be below the x-axis. It can't even touch the x-axis, because if it touches the x-axis, then you will have a value. So for example, if this would have been the graph, so you will have a value of x for which the y is 0, or the expression will yield 0. Not but 0 is not negative, right? So 0 is neither positive nor negative. So if it says always negative, it should be always below the x-axis. If it says always positive, it should be always above the x-axis. So then it should be looking like this. So the couple of things, if you understand the graphical interpretation, first of all, because the quadratic has a maximum, or the graph is going downwards, the leading coefficient should be negative, right? And in this case, you don't have to check this. In certain questions of this type, you might have to check this. But here you can see the leading coefficient is already negative, so you don't have to worry about it. The other part is, since it is not, intersecting the x-axis at all, so the discriminant should be less than 0, and this will be our focal point. So this is what the question is indirectly telling us. It doesn't have real roots, because it is not intersecting or cutting the x-axis. So basically, the discriminant, that is b square minus 4ac in the general form of quadratic, should be less than 0. So let's pick that up. So in this case, the b is this 5a. So you have b square, which is 5a whole square, minus 4ac. So a is minus 1, and the c is this entire thing with the sign. Never ignore the sign. So you have something like this. So I'm just writing this explicitly. If you're good with these simplifications, then maybe you can directly write this as 4a square plus 1, plus 9. And that is what I'm going to do next. So this is 25a square. Just let me write this properly. Yeah, if you have 25a square, then you have a minus 4 into 4a square plus 9, right? So you can start with this if you are good with simplifications. This step should be pretty easy to write. And now let me do a little bit of manipulation directly. So 25a square, and this is minus 16a square. So that will result in 9a square. And this constant term will be minus 4 into minus 9, which is, let me leave it at that. That will be interesting enough in this case. So this is what we have. So just divide the entire thing by 9, and what you have is a square minus 4 is less than 0, or a plus 2 into a minus 2 is less than 0. So I hope you know how to solve these kind of inequality questions. In this case, I'll show another method if you that might be fast enough. But let me do it by the generic method first. So just plot the critical points here, or the roots of this polynomial quadratic, whatever you want to call this. So minus 2 plus 2, these are the critical points or the roots. Now anything, you take any value of a here, just substitute here, and you'll find that is coming out to be positive. So if you put, let's say, a equal to 3, this is 5 into 1, so that is coming out to be positive, but we're looking for less than 0, so it doesn't satisfy here. If you pick any point here in between -2 and 2, let's say take up 0, so if you pick up 0, that is satisfying, so this is definitely satisfying this range. And if you pick up anything from this range, so let's say -5 or something, you can even take -2.01, that will still satisfy. So -5, I mean, not satisfy, it's the same thing, that's what I meant to say. So putting -5, let's say, this will be -3 and this will be -7, but negative into negative will result in a positive. But again, that is not satisfying, less than 0. So again, this is not satisfying. So we're looking for this range, which is in between -2 and +2. And it should be strictly in between, because equal to 0 is also not allowed. Had equal to 0 been allowed, then we can pick up a equal to -2 or a equal to +2, but we cannot pick up -2 and +2 in this case. So it has to be an open bracket. So that is option 3. It lies between -2 and +2. The other thing that I was talking about, I mean, you reach this point, a square minus 4 is less than 0. You can take it as this, because this is a pure square. So if the variable is entirety in a pure square, you have done that already, then you can do this. So don't square root both sides. That will be a mistake. Just try to understand through the line number. Think in both halves, I mean, in the positive half as well as in the negative half. So if I go right of 0, I can go somewhere less than 2, right? So I can go till 2 but not reach 2. So 2 is not acceptable, but I can go just before 2. Till then the square of a will be less than 4. And on the negative side also, if you think, you can go up to just less than -2. You cannot reach -2, because in that point again a square will be 4. So the acceptable range is anything in between -2 and +2. So we're getting the same answer. Even a equal to 0 is allowed. So we can deal with magnitude also in terms of the line number in this particular case. So that's it for this particular problem. I hope everything was understood, and thank you for joining in. This is a very nice question out here. You can do it in a lot of different ways. You may take some values also, which is satisfying the if condition. This if condition L plus M plus N equal to 0. Or I mean, if you're not confident, I mean, sometimes it happens that when you put in values, you're not confident. So in that case, if you feel you will not be confident by substituting values, then don't even go into that line. Solve it. I mean, it's not tough to solve, because if you look at the quadratic that is given, this entire thing, I'm going to do this a little separately. So the simplification, so that you understand that very, very easily. So for example, the first coefficient that you have of x square, that is m plus n minus l, right? Now, from this expression, you should be able to identify that m plus n is nothing but minus l. So I can replace this m plus n by minus l, right? And this entire thing comes out to be minus 2l. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reduce each coefficient by a single variable, something like that. So the second coefficient that we have, sorry, this one, that is n plus l minus m. So do the same thing. So n plus l minus m. Now n plus l, according to this, will be minus m, right? Because l plus m plus n is equal to 0. So this will be minus m, and this will come out to be minus 2l, minus m minus m. And similarly, this one will be minus 2n, right? So this is what we have. Now we can now rewrite this given quadratic in this way: minus 2l x square minus 2, no, sorry, this will be minus 2m, right? I said m, but I wrote l, I don't know why. Minus 2mx and minus 2n is equal to 0. So this is what is happening. You can just simply divide minus 2 on both the sides. So what you have is lx square plus mx plus n is equal to 0, right? So this is now a very nice observation part. See, we already have been given, I mean, this is a given part, that L plus M plus N is equal to 0, right? Check here. If I put X equal to 1, then I get this, right? L plus M plus N. So what it implies is one of the roots of this expression should definitely be 1, X equal to 1. And if you again further check this quadratic here, the product of the roots, you can do this with some of the roots also. The product of the roots is n by L, right? Now, if one of the root is 1, then the other root will be equal to n by L, which is dependent on the value of n and L, which is not known to us. I mean, n, L individually is not known to us, right? I mean, we can have a lot of different possibilities. We can have L as 5, M as -3, L as -2, N as -2, that is, 2, -1, -1. I mean, even we can have something like this, 5 by 3, 1 by 3, -2. So, I mean, all the cases where these three are adding up to 0. So we are getting these two roots, right? One of the root is definitely 1 and the other root is n by L. So now let us look at the options. So the first option says real and irrational. That is incorrect because even if you ponder on the n by L part, one of the root is 1. I mean, 1 is not an irrational number. So real and irrational is incorrect, but real and rational is definitely correct because I mean, now you can ponder on this, but given that L, M, N are rational numbers, a rational number divided by another rational number. So N and L are both rational, right? A rational number divided by rational number will always be a rational number. It's very easy to understand if you understand what are rational numbers. So for example, if I consider N is A by B, where A and B are integers, that is the definition of a rational number, and L is equal to C by D, again, C and D are integers. So when you divide N by L, what you get is something like AD by BC. Now, since A, B, C, D, all of these are integers because these are rational numbers. I mean, that is where we started with. Product of two integers will always be integer, right? So n by L is also coming out to be in integer by integer form. So rational number divided by rational number is always a rational number. So this is correct. Both the roots are real as well as rational. Imaginary is incorrect, obviously, and real and equal. Equal is not necessarily. I mean, it could be equal. It will only be equal provided n and L are both equal. So n is equal to L, something like that. So for example, in this case, I've considered n and m to be equal. So if I just have, let's say, -1 here and a 2 here for L and m. So now L and n are equal. So in that case, you're going to have the other root also 1. So it is possible, but it's not definitely right. So the answer is option 2 here. Very nice question. I mean, you can do this with by substituting some values. So you can pick up any one of these values that I put, or anything of your choice. Just you need to ensure that L, M, N is equal to 0, and just eliminate the options. You'll always get the answer. So that's it for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood.
Hopefully you liked the solutions we provided for these questions. And if you did like it, do not forget to like the video and share, subscribe, and comment. Do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon. In that case, you'll get notification as soon as we upload a new video. And if you want to check a bouquet of courses that we provide, so we have a huge variant of courses from customizability to full preparation. You can check our website, www.mathoratory.com. I'll leave the link in the description below. And have an enjoyable preparation ahead. Welcome to the Math Oratory family and have a good exam ahead.